All right, this is Mr. Wyrick. I'm going to go through these notes with you just real quick. We're talking about rectangles, rhombi, and squares. So right off the bat, a rectangle is a parallelogram. We talked about parallelograms. All four of the angles are right angles. That's where the name comes from, rectangle. Okay, it's right angles. So all four angles are right angles. The opposite sides are parallel and congruent. The opposite angles are congruent. So like some of those things, the exact same things that we had when we had the parallelogram. The consecutive angles are supplementary, the diagonals bisect each other, but this time, especially with the rectangle, the diagonals are congruent. Okay, if you want to prove that a parallelogram is a rectangle, all you have to do is show that the diagonals are congruent or show that it's a parallelogram. So prove that it's a parallelogram and prove that it has four right angles. When you have a rhombus, the rhombus is a parallelogram where all four sides are congruent. So the opposite sides are still parallel and congruent. The opposite angles are congruent. The consecutive angles are still supplementary. The diagonals are going to bisect each other. All four sides are going to be the same length. The difference with the rhombus, especially when you have the diagonals of a rhombus, the diagonals are perpendicular. Okay, so they are perpendicular bisectors, and they bisect the opposite angles as well. So that's some tricky stuff that you can run into when it's a rhombus. I always like this image here. When you have a square, it's a parallelogram with four congruent sides and four right angles, so it's a rhombus and a rectangle. So all the stuff that we had that worked for rectangles, all the stuff that we had that's going to work for a rhombus, that same stuff applies to the squares. So to prove a parallelogram is a rhombus, you show that the diagonals are perpendicular, show that the diagonals bisect opposite angles, or show that one pair of consecutive sides are congruent, because in the parallelogram, it's already the opposite sides. To prove that it's a square, you just show that it's both a rectangle and a rhombus. When we're looking at this, we have a rectangle. How long is KM? So these are supposed to be the two parts of JL. Remember, they're equal. You set them equal, solve for Y. Find out that full distance, and this other diagonal should be congruent to that. So this says BCD right here. It's 102. Find BAC. Again, these opposite angles should be congruent. We know in the rhombus we were bisecting the angles, so these would be 51. So these would also be 51 for both of them. And if ABCD is a rhombus and the measure of DPC is 3x minus 12, find the value of x. That would be 3x minus 12 is equal to 90. So you just kind of work your way through after that one. Your assignment for today is going to be in Schoology. It should be something with a Cami. We'll go over the work from the last couple days when I get back.